Okay, cool. All right, cool. We'll give it 3 more minutes. Just for context, hello everybody. My name's Antonio Cintron Rivera. I am an alumni for SCAD. I was once part of the rigging union, and now I'm not because I graduated and I'm not part of SCAD. So there's that. But I'm now currently an associate technical animator for High Res Studios, working on their latest game, Rogue Company. So,
Woo!
woo, thank you. But we'll be covering mainly the what, whys, where, when on Python, and why it is so damn crucial for every single rigger to learn and master. Because 50% is the rigging, 50% is a Python work, and sometimes not even related to rigging. You just gotta know Python. So it's a big, it's almost like 50% of your skill set. So if you don't know Python and you're here, you're doing the first step on your big adventure. We'll give it 2 more minutes, and then we can start the presentation. Feel free to stop me at any time if you feel confused. Sometimes I get my words wrapped up and I get lost in the explanation. So if you feel lost, confused, or just like, oh God, I have no idea what this man is speaking of, just stop me, and I'd be gladly to answer any question during the presentation. Brandon, how come you always show green?
Um, I think that might be the ambient noise in my room, but I don't know.
Interesting. So you have a soundtrack of your
Wait, what?
you have a soundtrack.
I
You know, like
guess
your own
so.
personal soundtrack for yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just ambiance.
yeah.
Cool.
Or just random people at Monty.
Are you in Monty right now?
Yeah, yeah, they let us back in.
Oh,
Pretty cool.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird. All right, 305. Any unfortunate souls that didn't come in on time is, well, sucks to be them, I guess. All right, everybody. We'll skip the introductions, but reiterate. My name is Antonio Jose Cintron Rivera, and we'll be talking about Python and more on how that involves in the beginning terms and long terms in it all. So we'll be covering like what's Python? What is Python used for? Why is Python so crucial for every rigging to learn? And many other earth-shattering questions that we'll cover in this presentation. I know, so many big questions. How do we answer them all? Well, let's start with the big one. What is Python? Python is a interpretive, object-oriented, high-level programming language with dynamic semantics, meaning that it is a very easy but very, I guess, as it says, high level, meaning that it can be taken to much simpler terms into a very complex, overly absurd coding that can pretty much change a whole industry. And Python is so favorable across any other programming language because easy to learn, but it's also easy to read. And any other professor that tells, hey, you should learn Mel, they're a liar, and it should be accused for it. Because absolutely, or that I know of, no company at the moment are even using Mel. And if they are, it probably is to integrate it to Python eventually. Most of the production optimizes to fully Python and will remain until maybe C++ would want to take over Maya or something. But I don't see that day ever coming, so we'll be stuck with Python. So this was my life before Python. I was sad. I was just so slow, putting joints individually. Ugh, how can I live my life like this? Manually doing work? Yuck. But look at my life after Python. I acquired such extraordinary skills, being able to spend little to no time rigging. And I type to the speed of sound, breaking all laws of physics, and I'm a complete Chad. And this could be you by just learning Python. So what is Python used for? Well, it is 70% of your industry assignment. You'd be shocked. As a rigger, you are responsible for doing characters, but you're also responsible for being able to do tools to do not just for rigging but for pipeline as well. Because not only is your main focus is doing the characters and making sure they're perfect, but sometimes you gotta make sure that the files are cleaned up. Maybe the namespaces are all jacked up. Maybe you need to help out animators with a tool or even modeling. So it is very extremely useful. And if you're working on a, let's say, a senior thesis, Python will be immensely helpful because it will allow you to overcome many obstacles that you'll face, especially if you're working remote from home and rendering is a big issue. You'll be able to come up with a very extraordinary solution to it all. So Python is used for speeding up your tedious work like example, placing joints. These days, people don't even spend a lot of time placing joints, but it depends on company to company. But it allows to cut down a lot of the workflow, mainly just doing the setups. It allows the user to create helpful tools, like I mentioned, like auto rigs, skin weight tools, pipe up cleanups, yada yada yada. Automates repetitive tasks like an FK chain. By this point, you never want to do another group and control with a joint on it anymore because you'll learn Python, and by that point, I think it's essential to remove any tedious work that you hate on doing rigging and basically remove manual rigging as a whole. Many of the people I work with hardly ever rig, and they replace it all with just using Python. They automate everything because a lot of time that we spent on most is perfecting their skin weight because as characters come in, the more complex they get, and we can't spend a lot of our time doing setups, and which is why we automate it all. It makes it easier, streamlined, and it also allows us to be able to jump between characters at once. So why do riggers need to learn Python? I feel like I already reiterated or answered this question, but it's so crucial. It really reduces a lot of our workflow. Rigging is a very tedious task, and probably if you're one of the very unfortunate few that were part of the team or senior thesis that was forced to use advanced skeleton, you can probably understand why they would do such a thing because rigging is extremely is tedious work. Unlike modeling, rigging is super hard to master, especially as a senior. It takes many months, perhaps even like a quarter to even finish a rig, depending on how complex it is. And you know, it's so this is why you need to learn Python. It removes a lot of that tediousness. I feel like I'm a broken record, keep repeating the same damn thing, but it's very right, which is why you're here to learn about the Python basics. Which is why, how do I start? I told you, you're talking all this big talk about Python. How do I get into it? Sounds big, sounds amazing. But how does one start? It all starts with Python basics. We'll cover all these very simple topics: printing, basic data types, variables, tuples, lists, yada yada yada. They're all extremely simple. Unfortunately, because I'm on the road, I was planning on using Maya and showcase it live, but unfortunately, I cannot share Maya at the moment unless someone would be a kind soul to share their Maya as I'm explaining things. I'll give you like a little rundown of how to do things. We'll have to do it all by with our own imagination. So your journey starts here. You open up Maya, you open up the script editor, and you see a tab called Python. And then you type print hello world. Print, it's a very simple but very powerful tool. It is so simple that even the most top level programmers still use printing to first enter a simple command or allow us to use as a error checker. So printing is just literally outputting text. It's just saying hello world. I can even say Brandon is a big poopy head and it'll still print it out as an output. It's just inputting information, nothing extraordinary, but it can be used for either, let's say, I want to check if the code is doing the thing. So I use print to say, does this work? And it's just simply say all whatever I want. basic data types. So when you do any sort of obtaining data or any sort of thing that allows you to use data, there's different types. And you have to very much understand this because when you start reading the documentation, they're gonna ask you to insert said data. So what am I exactly speaking about data? So data is like a information. It is a entity, and there's different types. So boolean is true or false. Is it true? If said things does this, is it true? Like for example, did everyone come into the meeting? True. Did everyone not come into the meeting? False. You know, stuff like that. Integer, whole number. I think we all took basic level of math. I think we all understand what integer means. Float. It will always result in a decimal. So if it's a 1, it's going to give you a 1.0. And a string, which is what I spoke here. Like, for example, hello world. That it can also use information. So why are we talking about data types? Because when you open up the Maya documentation, they're going to be flags, which flags is like an up box on any sort of command in Maya. They'll ask you so many questions like, for example, I want a sphere. How many subdivisions do you want? That's going to ask you for an integer, right? It's going to ask you for how many numbers of subdivisions do you want in Hive. So this is why I ends up
Is Antonio breaking up for other people as well?
Yeah, Antonio. Just so you know, you've probably been cutting up for like the past like 10 to 15 seconds. If you can hear us. Oh, hey, Dara. Welcome.
Hello.
Um, so that may be, I guess this may be the time where Antonio may be going through the mountains. So yeah, he might be suffering a bit of low connection right now.
Okay, Brandon, take over.
Oh shit. Well, oh boy. Oh jeez.
Do the middle school thing where you just read everything that's on PowerPoint.
Oh gosh. Okay, I guess Dara and I will be the substitute teachers right now.
Oh, one thing that I did want to mention, because I think he kind of skipped over a bullet point at the beginning. When he was one of his bullet points at the beginning was that Python is a high-level programming language. That doesn't really mean that it's really good, like it's at the top of the hierarchy. Um, what it means is like a low-level programming language is something where you're working with like very close to like the actual memory or how the computer works. And then higher level ones are, easier to use. Like you just have like lists and variables and things like that. That's what it means to be a higher level one. You have access to kind of more encapsulated variable sort of setups. Cool.
So just for clarification, it kind of lower level is kind of like taking the actual hardware and trying to manipulate that, whereas like higher level will be more like actual software or oh boy, stream just ended. Um,
there we go.
oh hello, welcome back. Did you just go through the mountains?
Gosh, I'm going through the mountains at the moment. Sorry, guys.
Oh jeez.
Presentation in the car, on the highway. You know, things always go according to plan, and you have to apologize. Uh, and yes, I was cutting out. My bad. All right, all right, Brandon. I'm gonna ask you kindly. Would you be so kind and be my guinea pig and open up Maya?
Oh gosh. Actually, I think you might need to go back like a couple slides. Or like
Okay,
a slide or two. Yeah, right here. Like that slide right there is kind of where you really just cut off. So I think you were talking about strings the last time before you cut out.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. All right. In that case, would you be willing to open up Maya if you have access to it?
Yeah, I can totally open it up. Should I just share my screen then?
Yes, you're gonna. Yeah, we'll be switching back and forth between mine and Brandon's. Unfortunately, I will have to wing this because I had my Maya on my main computer. But unfortunately, life doesn't always go how you want it. All right,
Okie
do,
dokie.
do me a quick favor, buddy. I want you to uh I want you to open up the script editor, which is on the bottom right.
Yeah.
This
Just
is for everybody who don't know how to open it. The script editor is a button. It's a small gray box on the bottom right,
yeah, it's right here.
and then yes, that's the thing that is your main thing. That is the main baby that you'll be working on for the rest of your life, unless you use Notepad++ or Charcoal Editor. I assume nobody knows that, but if you
Mason's
do,
actually talked about it when he came in.
oh, that's perfect. And yes, then many of these editors that you'll be using, you'll be getting very familiar with them. And this is the main prime jewel. It's the baby of the babies. So, all right, let's go back to the beginning. So print hello. So like I was saying, print is just outputting text. So Brandon, do me a favor. Yes, say hello world.
Oh, well.
That's hello. There we go. Hello world. This is literally your first start of the adventure. So as we covered that is a string. The quotation marks are what represents as a string. You'll know because it's colored by a yellow. Sorry, yellow. I see green in other notepads, but yes, that is what represents as a string. That's what you know. You're doing the thing that is a string. As when we use any other thing, like for example, like if you write true. Sorry about that. Can you write true? It should be T capital.
Yeah. Is it not showing up for
So
you right now?
oh yeah, no, I see it. Yeah, true or false. Then you highlight it in green. Now there's many ways that also incorporate the color green, like print, as it is a native Maya command, but it also showcases that it is a different type of entity, which is a Boolean, which is the only type that represents true or false. We'll be covering more of that topic of how we can use true or false later down in the presentation. So let's talk about variables. Variable is a label that holds a single data. What does that mean? It means that I can contain any anything of the sort that we just talked about into a little label. For example, let's write in mountain. Let's write mountain, Brandon. No need to be specific on. There we go. Then space equal. Then I want you to write in quotation mark lagging. There you go. Now I want you to highlight that section, that whole thing. So like you're gonna like hover over it. There we go. Then press Control Shift Enter.
Oh man. Oh wow, actually no. Didn't.
There we go.
Oh god.
So when you now highlight mountain alone, and then Control Shift Enter, it should say lagging. That is a variable. It is a label to any sort of data that you want to contain into that name. It can be absolutely anything. It can be Brandon equals poopy head. It can be Antonio equals lagging in the mountains, or it can be any sort of thing. It is a label. It is just contains any sort of information to whatever name you want to give it to. It can literally represent anything. You can write whatever it is, and it will contain that information. Now, list. A label holds several data that uses a bracket. It is, as it says, it contains multiple data. And list is extremely powerful because it is the very few where you can able to manipulate said data to your own personal use. Now, Brandon, let's put in meeting. Giving a meeting, intermeeting, equals. There we go. Now gonna enter quotation marks. And then let's write in Brandon. Write your name, Brandon, and then end it. Then we're gonna add Amanda. Write in the Dara, Asha. Basically, everyone in the Discord. I want everyone to feel included.
Oh goodness, need to check everyone's names.
I want everyone to be included.
There we go. All right.
Taylor.
Taylor? Sorry, Taylor.
Very good.
Everyone needs to be included. Brandon, come on.
Everyone is included.
But there we go. Very good.
Right.
So now, if if you hit Control Shift Enter, now we have a list of all of our names that's in the meeting. So if we were to open up them, if we were to highlight meeting, and then we Control Shift Enter on meeting, there we go. We see everyone's beautiful names. Like a variable.
Oh, Antonio, you still there? Uh-oh. Yep.
Hello?
Oh, welcome back.
I'm still here. Sorry, guys. So
Okay,
I want you
cool,
to enter meeting bracket.
cool. Okay.
So let's write in a 3. Write
Three?
3 in between the bracket. Yep. And I want you to highlight everything and then run it. And then so small. It says Dasha, right? Dasha.
Yep.
Oh, and now gave us a single data. What does that mean? It means that we are now controlling and being able to output individuals' data inside this list. Why is this so important? It means that when you have a large list of data, you want to be able to keep it all together. Let's say if we're going to have a hierarchy of joints, right? So when you have a hierarchy of joints, you want to be able to manipulate said joints. So let's say you have a shoulder, elbow, and wrist. You want to be able to say, I want to assign said controller to wrist, right? So this becomes extremely important on being able to manipulate lists because it allows us to give us individual data to specific entities within this list. So for example, I want to say like, yeah, very good, exactly this. I can specify I want shoulders. That means I have to write in a 0. Fun fact, you don't start with 1, even though that's what they taught you in school. You start with 0. Why? I don't got all the answers. I just don't question it. So 0 it is. It is the first thing because you start from 0 to 1 and 2. So in this case, when we write in joint 0, it gives us shoulder because that is the first thing within the list. There's many ways to manipulate lists. There's many ways to manipulate variables. There's many commands that allows you to reverse it, twist it, pull it, pop it. In many ways, that allows you to really fully control this information. And pretty much Python is about manipulating data and being able to use it for our own fruition. And we'll later go touch in how we can use this data onto rigging. It's a big combination. Presentation will keep going as it is. So tuples, it is the exact same as a list. It is, but the only thing is that you can't control it, you can't change it, though you can reorder it. It is a very strict version of what a list is, a little less. And it's only for certain situation where you know that you're gonna, let's say in this case, you're gonna share your code with another teammate, and you don't want them touching things that they shouldn't. In this case, you will do a tuple. But most of the time, you'll do lists because you want to manipulate it 9 out of 10 times. And personally, in my experience, I never use a tuple unless I'm sharing a code with someone that I don't want to make sure that they don't mess it up. And same goes for sets. Sets is pretty much stores several items, but it's unindexed and unordered. It is just kind of like a jumble up information that you can't really do much with. It is a single entity with a large vast of data. Pretty simple so far. Please stop me at any time if you feel confused or this presentation is too scuffed. Let's move on to the next slide. Linear. Wow, what the text is just at the bottom. Linear. So here's one main thing that a lot of people struggle with, and I even found myself struggling when I first started with my adventure, is with Python and programming as a whole, you need to be very, very specific and very, very detailed on what you want the code to do. So, for example, I want to say I want a robot to grab an apple. I need to write the code that I can know what an apple is. I can identify the apple, walk to the apple, use the arm to reach the apple, open hand to grab the apple, close hand to around the apple, and so on and so on. You need to be very precise and specific in a step-by-step manner to achieve said goal. So in the case of rigging, if I want to create an FK chain, I have to create a group node, a controller, be able to identify the hierarchy, and be able to constrain it, be able to rename it, and parent the controller under the group node, and it gets very, very detailed. And it's a many problem that a lot of people faces because it's just kind of skip. It's just kind of go like, okay, FK a controller to join, but they have to be create a controller, identify the join, and it's a very step-by-step linear process. It's sometimes is a very hard topic or mindset to get adjusted in, but it's very easy once you start getting familiar with it. A very good practice that even I've been given to during my work is when I find a hard time like trying to decipher a code or try to understand problems, I'll go back from the beginning and I start slow, start step by step. So like a good example with the FK chain, controller, group, points, and so on. Think step by step. Next slide. For loops. For loop is a command that repeats a series of action for however amount of times the user needs it to. And I read a good example. Thank God I did write code in this presentation. For. So for, if you run in Maya, not sure if I don't think we split unless you take out your screen. Well, if you enter for, it will highlight it. And there's many ways to use this, but a very simple way is by saying for I, or it can be anything, but it basically represents the repetition in range. In range means how many amount of times do I want this repetition to go. So I said hello, I said hi, I, meaning that it's gonna output the amount of times this code has gone. So I said hi, I times, so the output should say hi, I said hi one time. In this case, it should have been 0, not 1. I don't know why I write that, but it should have been 0. I said hi 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times. Please end me. I said hi 7 times, and so on. It is a repetition of a series of commands. Why is it so useful? Imagine you don't want to be doing. So imagine you don't want to be doing FK chains over and over, and I always gotta go back to the FK chains because, trust me, when you do a snake, you don't want to be doing each and every controller individually. Trust me, it's not fun. So which is why you create a full loop that will do the exact same action across the board, and it's extremely useful. It will allow you to remove that tedious tax, which has a whole motif of removing tedious and repetitive workflow into our code. Very simple topic. Feel free to stop me anytime. Let's move on. Oh, that's great. Oh, there we go. If statement. So we're going back to the Boolean. So you know how I mentioned that when you use true or false, it's going to highlight in green. This is where we will use that said information if whether said thing is true or false. So, not sure why I wrote that. Pretty much, if said thing happens, do this. If not, else print this. I think this would be a good time, if we can, to switch over to Maya to showcase a good example of what we can do with if statements. Ah, that's
So Maya,
perfect.
right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So let's make a thing. So we're gonna write in a variable, which again is a label of containing a single data. So let's write in Brandon. Let's write in Brandon. I want you to write your beautiful name, Brandon. I want you to give yourself a string of big poopy head.
Oh god. Okay.
Beautiful. Now, under it, you're gonna write if Brandon, and here's a very tricky thing. You're now gonna say equal twice. Does anyone know why we have to put equal?
Does that mean does not equal?
No. If you want to say not equal, you would write an exclamation mark and equal.
Damn.
That would mean it's not true. In
I
this
don't
case,
know
it
Python.
means it's okay. It's okay. That's why you're here.
Um,
So equals means that it is saying that is this true? Is this true? So in this case, I want you to copy that string that you wrote on your variable, Brandon, and then you're gonna put it as gonna put it right next to that to the double equal. There we go, and then gonna put a colon.
Right.
There you go. So let's put enter. Hit enter. So now you should see that now your cursor is right, sort of indented. That means that now whatever is in this if statement will do whatever is the action. So you're gonna print, just enter print. There we go. I'm gonna write in true.
Yeah, this is a call out.
There we go. What's up?
Man, this is a big call out post, man.
Yeah. So and then gonna write in else.
Alright.
And then there we go. Else colon and then right under it enter. And gonna write in print. It should be true. There we go. So grab everything from Brandon from your variable. There we go. Hit Shift and Control Shift Enter. Boom. So now it gave. Now let's go into if. Let's highlight the bottom, just the if section.
In here?
So like from the if statement and below.
Okay.
It did say true, but want to make sure it highlights it. Do it again. So we now see that it wrote true. Now what would happen? In this case, it knows true because Brandon is equal big poopy head. But let's say what will happen if Brandon wasn't a big poopy head? Let's just write in not poopy head on the string. All right, now let's grab everything from Brandon below and then write it in and then hit Shift hit Enter. Control Shift Enter, sorry. And it should say it should be true. Now, what happened here? So we both learned that if it's true, it's gonna input what is correct, and what isn't, it's gonna input what is under else. Why is this so important? Let's say you're in a situation where you only want to constrain shoulder. You will create a if statement that will say like if joint equals shoulder, I want you to constrain it. If not, ignore it. If there are situations where you only want to do certain actions to certain things, and you want it to be only happen for like I said, for certain situation, which is why we use the if statement. If what is said thing happen, do this. If not, do this instead. It's gonna allow you to be able to branch out and give certain options to certain things while you're doing while you're controlling many data. In case with a variable, you'll be able to manipulate it and ensure that if Brandon's not poopy head, it should have been true, but it's gonna give a false because it's not accurate to what we're asking. Because we're saying if Brandon equals big poopy head, it's gonna look for that variable and say, does this variable contain what I wrote here? In this case, it doesn't, so it's just gonna give out what's under else. Is that Is that understandable, or do you feel like it's sort of a lot to understand? Okay, I think it's good so far. All right, let's go back to the slider.
Here we go. Oh, you can see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Boom. Let's keep on going. Function. Now this is a big one. Function is a block of code that will do all set of action when it is called. It is, I think, is one of the most powerful tools that can be used universally, and I think that's a big topic that can be said on a different sort of conversation. But functions in as a whole, it literally is like I said, a chunk of code. We're defining something that can do certain things, and regardless of what it is. So in this case, we're going to define Brandon. To create a function, you're going to write def, which is define. And in this case, I use Brandon. So I'm going to create Brandon, and it's going to give me set commands, which is print, still a big poopy head, and then print true. So when I call it in, and I only have to write Brandon in parentheses, it will gonna give me whatever's under the definition of Brandon, and it's gonna output that information. In this case, I wrote to print, and it's gonna give me that information. Let's try this with. Let's give a good example. Let's go back to Maya. Let's go under it. Let's this makes a lot of enters. Let's keep this information for later. We'll go back into it. Just press a lot of enter. There we go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Boom. Let's just keep it up down on below. Yes, I could create another tab, but nah. So we're gonna write in def, which is define, and we know that it works because it gave me a green, meaning that it is a Python Python command, and we're gonna write in Brandon in parentheses in colon. Perfect. Now I'm gonna hit enter, and then you'll notice, just like the if statement or for loop, it's gonna indent my command now, meaning that whatever is indented, it's probably what's gonna do when I call in Brandon. So let's say in this case, let's just do something fun. Let's print in. What do you want to print out, Brandon? I'm gonna let you choose.
Let's just type, nope. Let's go with that. Just keep it simple.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go
All
with
right.
nope.
It's first. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Let's go with nope.
So I want you to select that and then Control Shift Enter.
Alright.
Cool. We know how it works. Now press Enter twice. There we go. And then gonna write in Brandon parentheses. Now we're gonna call this command. We created it. We created Brandon. We created a little chunk of code, and when we run it, it should give me nope. Because Brandon is a very simple man. And that's perfect. What does this mean? This means that everything that we have learned so far with variables, list, for loop, if statement, printing, everything can be encapsulated in this definition. So let's say in the case that, hey, I already made a code that can create FK controls for my FK chain. I don't want to keep writing that out. What do? You create a function and recall it at any file, which is so powerful. Because if I want to import a Python file that has this command, I can import it in, and I can recall this thing over and over across several files. And I don't need to write this code ever again, because I can recall it across my entire pipeline. And that's so powerful. Because instead of writing the whole chunk of code or copy pasting the whole chunk of code into your new code, you just got that one line. It just kind of does it all. And it's so powerful because you want to share across other people, and you want to keep that code clean and nice and amazing. You do this method. think we're getting very close to the end, but let's keep on going.
Okie dokie. Let's detail. Yeah, there we go. Oh, you can see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's keep on going to the next one. This is where the real fun begins. Maya commands. How do you learn the basics? How do you feel or sort of in the realm of where you need to be? This is where all the big fun stuff will happen. I've been alluding to the FK chains. Antonio, you keep speaking about the FK chains. FK chains. Antonio, at this point, you might as well make one. And goddamn it, I will. Let's go back to Maya.
All right.
So, Brandon, I want you to delete Brandon and the print. Nope, accept the definition.
Okay.
I want the Brandon. I just want the deaf Brandon.
Okay.
Okay, but let's go above Brandon, like 2 lines up.
Okay.
2 lines above
Okay.
Brandon. Gonna write in what I wrote in my presentation.
Okay.
It is import maya.cmds. CMDS means commands. And what we're doing, we're now trying to import the Maya commands into Python. And now I'm going to say as CMDS, which is now identifying. This is basically a variable that's saying, I want you to give me the Maya commands, and whenever I want to call in any Maya command, I'm going to use CMDS. It can be anything. It can be like nope. Instead of saying CMDS, just write in nope, and it'll still be able to reference it in. Yeah, nope. We're going to use that as the command. I want you to highlight it, Control Shift Enter. Brilliant. Now we called it in. Now we know that it can work. So we're gonna do something simple. Let's do something simple before we get into the join chain. All right, Brandon. I want you under Brandon. I want you to write in CMDS circle. Sorry, no, right, nope. Sorry, too used to it.
It's gonna
Yep,
cause so
nope.
many problems.
It is now your fault.
Oh God.
All right. Now put it into a bracket because we're calling in functions. Whenever we call in any sort of Maya command, it is technically a function because the things we're calling in, they're a series of codes that does certain things. In this case, we're going to call in a nerve circle. So I want you to highlight it and Control Shift Enter, right? Not that, the whole thing. It's I only see one. I don't see any parentheses on it.
Oh, just okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Boom! We made a circle. We're now in the very first step, beginning of becoming a full-fledged rigger. Beautiful. And it all starts here. It all begins here. So let's start with creating just a simple single joint with a single controller with a single group, parent constraining to the joint. Let's go step by step. So this is the big leap. Once you feel like you're comfortable to tackle Maya commands, this is where the big thing happened. It is very difficult because you'll need to start reading a lot of documentation. Let's write in nope.circle, like we did. And if you, I believe, if you highlight circle alone, and then you right click it, there should be a button that says command documentation. This will be literally the Bible for all sort of Maya commands. This is going to be your sweet baby to it all. It's going to give you every single information you need about calling any single command about Maya. It is a bit tedious, and seeing all of it don't make any sense. Trust me, as we take it little by little, it'll all make sense. So, start very simple. So we create a circle, but before that, we should make a group node, because with a group node, we should be able to put that group and have the circle go right under it. So above circle, we're going to write a nope dot should be able to write in group. Perfect. And then we're gonna start manipulating set function. So this is where you're gonna learn something called flag. Flag is what basically is when you open up any commands and it shows you like a checkbox. Let's open up. Go to the up top. Go to mesh, Brandon. Up top, mesh, and you see how there's a checkbox. I feel like I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but when you do the checkbox, yeah, click anything, any checkbox, and it's gonna give you all these commands, right? It gives you like how do you want this thing to happen. This is basically what we're doing in this checkbox, but into Python. We're basically saying, I want you to do this specifically with the grip node, but we're not gonna get all that serious with it. Let's just start very simple. All I want to do is name the grip node and the circle. I don't want anything else special. That's all I want. So, Brandon, I want you to do a parentheses on group and then give me N. N is short for name. We want to give it a name. We're not going to let it call group 1. And like, why would we do that? So, we got to give it a name. Let's just call it GRP. Let's make it into a string by, yes, give it a, there we go. And then for circle, we're going to call it CTRL. There we go. And I want you to highlight the branding, the whole thing with the commands. Okay. Control Shift Enter. Boom. So let's call in that branding. Let's call it in.
Let's just.
Let's see. Not enough objects or values. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's remove the N. Let's remove that section. It's so small, it's hard to see. But yeah, let's remove that. And then let's call it in. Not enough values. Okay. That's quite strange. Okay. Well, let's just remove the function in this case. So, yeah, just going to remove it. If you just run it as normal.
Oh, it's with the group. So there's probably something we need to add in here for a flag. So should we just go to the quick help right there?
Oh, I think we have to write in if it wants it to be parented or individual. So this is not a good time to go into the command documentation. Can you pull it up real quick?
Yep.
So if you're ever like me, where you just sort of don't know how to create a group node, very amazingly, documentation also includes examples of many uses that you can have on using set command. Let's go all the way to the bottom. And so right there, we have a good example of what we wanted to do. And it looks so nice. So in this case, I wanted to make it alone. And right there, we see under MySCMDS, it says create an empty group node with no children. And that's exactly what we need. Whenever you feel lost, like me, just don't know how to write something, Python documentation will also include set example that will allow you to know the many uses of how to use set function. So in this case, let's copy that section where it says CMDS group. Yep, let's copy and then paste it into the, in that section. And obviously, replace CMDS for nope. Oh, not the whole thing. And then if we run it all together, the nope, the circle, and the group, boom, we created 2 entities. And this is where the documentation becomes so useful, because there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to feel very daunted where you learn a new command and things that you might not quite understand. which is why it is so. It is, like I said, it has become the prime jewel. It is like the Bible, for everything you need to know how to do certain things when Maya commands. And as you go along the way, you might even memorize these flags. So you might not even be like me, where I do a presentation, I forget the simplest things, and it happens. So, and then the last thing, you can't have a group node and a circle without a joint. So you're gonna write in nope dot joint and encapsulate it. Let's run that again. Now we have a controller and a joint. If you're fancy, I usually like this setup. I kind of like having the joint under it. Now this doesn't always happen, but now you kind of notice, Antonio, you're almost there. How come the group is not like circle not parented under it, but that's where we start getting it all together. So in this case, we're gonna learn just how you normally do it. I assume there's a command that does a parenting, right? Feel like I think I should call you out. What is the command to parent something? What's the keybind? If I want to parent something to something, what keybind would I press?
It sounds like it should be called parent, Antonio.
Wow, that's so crazy,
Wow.
dude. That's why you're the president.
Oh my god.
But yes, there is a command that is literally says parent. So if you write in parent, whoa, parent, it's blue. And this will allow us to parent anything from one thing to another. And there's only two objects, so you have to be very careful. So you have to specify two objects. Now, but Antonio, there's something wrong with here. How do we control it? Now that's where we go back to the basics. Go back to variables. We can define the group and controller as a variable. So if we give this a name, let's write in Antonio on group as a variable, and there we go, circle. Give that Brandon. In this case, now all we have to say is I want to parent Brandon to Antonio. Perfect. Now let's run it all together. Perfect. We know it worked because it did exactly what we wanted to. We created the things we needed to group in a circle, and then we had the joint that will automatically already be parented to the last thing you selected. In this case, it was circle. Because if you don't know, when you call something in, it will already automatically select it. So by this point, it's already automatically parented. And then we specify we want to parent said thing to another. In this case, the circle to the group, or plainly Brandon to Antonio. We now have a simple FK control. But obviously, just like anything else, you can use a parent constraint. And if you write in parent constraint with C as a capital, literally everything you know about Python, Maya now is basically the exact same thing as it is in Maya. All you just have to write is just the nope or CMDS, whichever you choose, dot set thing you want. Is really simple. Now I know it's 4 p.m. and we'll skip over some of the things, but I really want to showcase the last bit of things that I think will be very useful to you all on obtaining further information. So let's go back to the presentation real quick. I know it's past 4 p.m.
Oh no, by all means keep going. Yeah.
Let's
Is this it?
It's Python skill tree. I think when you're learning something so daunting, it's very easy to, or how my boss has taught me, to really cut it all down to very simple concepts and conquer them little by little. So I felt like it would be a good like benchmark for everybody to be able to have something to look forward to as you're going into your adventure learn Python, or if you feel like you need to pursue more of Python, want to go above and beyond. This would be a very helpful like little guide on be able to know where you are with your learning. So with the beginner, you need to comprehend and understand each Python concept, and in this case, the basics that we covered. Learning some of the Maya commands. You don't need to know all, but in this case, a very simple thing like joint, circle, group. basically our holy trinity of rigging, pretty much. And tackle some basic exercises. Basic exercises, like in this case, being able to call in like a simple FK, or if you feel like you want to take in a bigger challenge, make it a full FK chain code that can allow us to create said hierarchy, and then be able to create an FK chain. Like simple, basic like that. That you already mastered it by hand. You just gotta know how to do it in code. And then experiment with many of the small rigging tasks. Like let's say you want to do a FKIK blend, or maybe you want to do anything like a ribbon setup. Maybe that's a bit too much, but small tasks, or like a button that can allow me to change a control color. Right? Very simple topic that you can slowly conquer as you start learning more things. Intermediate modular rigging. This is the point where you feel very comfortable with understanding the basics of Python and Maya. And this is where you start pushing yourself to the limits. How to make a modular. Modular is something that's sort of like a piece of the puzzle. In this case, like a script that can allow me to create a full FKIK arm. Right? That's modular. Like a leg setup, or a spine setup, or if you feel super brave, a whole facial rigging setup. Right? But that's that's a lot. Stuff like that. Creating modular stuff that can slowly build your pieces in a section. At this point, you must have learned the Maya commands and the flags. Like in this case, we learned about n, which should be name, which will name something. And also, this will where you start going into PyML. In the industry, a lot of people will start using PyML, which is a combination of being able to use mel commands through Python object-oriented programming. So basically, you use mel in Python. So it's like the simplicity, because if you do joint in mel, it just kind of throws it in, right? It's just entering joint or circle. And in this case, it'll allow us to do that in Python. PySide and PyQt is basically the UI making. This is where you start making your UIs. Kind of like how you saw that one photo with the auto rig. It has a nice UI. That's where you start also being able to make it all look super pretty, because it gets tiring to recall the same command over and over, which is why you make a UI. And start tackling non-rigging tasks. In the industry, you'll start facing a lot of tasks that's not even rigging, not even Maya related. Sometimes you just gotta make codes that can manipulate files, and this is something that's gonna be very useful. Because if you go into your senior thesis, there might be problems that, oh boy, let's say someone messed up the namespace, and you gotta fix that in a big file structure management, and it becomes extremely tedious. Which is why learning a lot of the Python stuff through the basic and intermediary, which you will learn independently. Because when you come to a very unique situation, you'll look into unique solutions. Then advance. Advance is where I feel like this is where you truly shine. This is where you feel like your confidence has gone over to the roof. You begin to create an auto rig. It might seem like a daunting mission, like you're never gonna make it. But trust me, I did my first auto rig when I was in junior year, and I felt like it was impossible. But it was all because of a combination of just learning the very basics. I didn't know anything about PyQt or PyML. I just kind of skipped over it, and I felt very good. But I felt like I skipped over a few minor details that could really allow me to excel in my studies, and which is why I put the PyQt and PySide and PyML and intermediary, because this will become such a good foundation on the long run. By shifting to more of a PyML pipeline fully. And same goes for the Python-oriented workflow, where you're now dependent more on Python than you are with manual work. Python's not to remove it; it just allows it to make your life so much easier. And then achieve a workflow that allows less time in rigging and more time to skin weighting. We all know that rigging is just half the work. Skin weighting is also the other 50%. And if you can conquer that automation with Python, I feel like you can conquer skin weighting, and you'll be spending more time skin weighting, and then you see your poor friend tragically doing the FK chain by hand. What a slob, Because we all know skin weighting takes a long time to master. So you want to be able to have that time spent on that. And let's say a few of you Antonio, I already know all of this. Uh, Antonio, I need something better than that. How do I go even further beyond? That's a great question. Let's go out to the next slide. Ultimate. This is where you feel like you have conquered it. Vector math and matrix math. It is when I first learned this in the industry, I felt like this was nothing. This was like something I shouldn't be even touching. Why would I do math? I went to art college, not science. What is this? It's extremely the most powerful tool ever. Would you believe me that people are not even using no zero constraints on their rigs, and they're using fully math nodes to be able to replace constraints? Imagine a world with zero constraints. Baffling, right? It is now has become a huge staple. A lot of my friends that I know were all like, I told you, gotta constrain. You can't parent a joint under controller. What is this? That's pathetic. What's wrong with you? And they all just disregard constraints. It's funny enough, constraint in a very deep level takes up a lot of like CPU and GPU on a scene. And Matrix allows it to increase the FPS by a mile. It is extremely powerful. And there's many cases where we can cover that, but that's a whole presentation on its own. Matrix and vector. And if you feel like you can manipulate that with Python, trust me, I think you've pretty much made it in your adventure. Obviously, the sky's the limit, and there's so much you can do, which is why I will offer you some good resources that can allow you to undergo this adventure. So if we go on to the next slide, Brendan.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay. Excellent resources. Since some of you are in SCAD, I took an election with Deborah Fowler. Deborah Fowler is an extraordinary professor where I took my Python basics. It is exclusively Python, where you just learn the basic and you master it. She is one of the many programmers for NASA. If that doesn't excite you to be learning from NASA, I don't know what will. And it's truly where I started my first adventure. Or let's say you can't use the election for that, but you still want to undergo the basics. I'm not sure if Brandon has it, but Brandon or whoever has the Python for Kids book, this is where you can start your basics adventure through there. Or by yourself, or steal it from somebody. I'm not your dad. Just get the book. So it is, as it says, it is for kids. But it explains all the basic fundamentals I showed you here in a more dumber way. It is like Python for dummies. But in this case, it's for kids because we keep it PG. But let's say, Antonio, I kind of want to get my hands into Python and Maya. Like, that's what I'm here for, Antonio. I'm like, all right. Then you go into this link right here, the surbrick.com tutorials, which I'll grab I'll post it on the general so everyone can grab it. It is such a amazing resource for Surbrick. He is a veteran within the industry. Unfortunately, you do have to pay, but it's only $5. But $5 that will allow you to not only take the basics, but be able to learn Python, Maya for production, Python, PyQt, PyML, Python as a whole, how to use the charcoal editor, and so much more for only like what, $5, $10. It is a huge amount of information that you could probably spend a few $2,000 in Adam School, where here you only spend $5 for almost the exact same education. Or in this case, you don't get it from where you take classes. You get a bunch of videos that all hold such phenomenal information. I feel like not many know about, and I feel like this is something that you guys would love for it. If not, you also are taking the minor for character technical direction. It will also offer scripting for animation that I learned it from Ahmed Matarawi, or any professor that teaches in Python will allow you to also undergo that adventure with Python and Maya. It is essential, I feel like, this class, because this is how I did my first auto rig, and I learned so much from him. He was my mentor. It was phenomenal. If you can take that class, perfect. Take it and write it, and it's gonna help you long term. But if there's other professor that also teaches it as well, but in Python, perfect. I know some professor still teach that class in Mel. I can assure you, no one in the industry uses Mel, and if they do, is like super scarce. Most of them just transition to Python because it's easier across the board. Because you can use Python for not Maya work, even Unreal, even Houdini. If you feel like you want to undergo Python and Houdini, you know, Python is super universal and used for many programs that you might be fortunate enough to try out, and it's just gonna help you fundamentally in all range, which is why I tell everybody to study Python because let's say you'll go to a game company and they want you to do coding in Unreal, you already know Python. This point you just gotta learn the documentation. That's it. And then you go to Cerbrick.com, which is, like I said, it is for only $5 or $10 for a ginormous mountain of information that is almost worth like a SCAD class is like what, dude, like I don't even know how much SCAD class cost because I use, it's I'm not sure by math, but it so much information that you feel like it's never ending. Help you in the long term. And then obviously, if you feel like you don't enjoy the script editor like me, once you know real power, you'll just come to appreciate the charcoal editor or Notepad plus plus. Notepad plus plus is basically like Notepad, but it is for programming, and it is so powerful. Charcoal editor is for Maya, meaning that you can access everything and run the code. In Maya, meanwhile, Notepad is a separate thing, is a separate like program, which you'll have to be able to like run the code in Maya. So really has its pros and cons, really. And I think that's it. I think if we move on to the next one, it's just gonna be Q&A. If anyone has any. Brent? Oh, a challenge. Yes. If you ever feel like, I forgot that. I also wrote in the challenge, which is something that Ahmed made me do, which allowed me to really, I guess, like, sort of like made me give me an understanding of where I am right now. So I always go back on the motif, FK chains. It is simple, but it is actually if you don't believe me, it is actually your first Python task if you get hired in some of the industry. I know for MPC or for I know for Insomniac, your first Python task is to be able to create a full FK chain on a gigantic branch of joints. It is the first ever task, and this will be sort of like your milestone. If you can do this challenge, that means you kind of made it. You kind of feel like you kind of like defeated like a sort of like threshold of where you are in your learning, in your studies. So, and as a bonus, if you can do this challenge completed in less than 15 lines, that means that you got something to kind of show off. If you guys decide to undergo this, and let's say someone does it in less than 15 lines, I mean that guy has done his studies. It might seem simple, but it's actually quite difficult. And I can't explain why. You just have to go it through yourself.